Advancements in the history of aviation have paved the way for iconic aircraft that have emerged as the most formidable and groundbreaking weapons of our era. Each aircraft possesses a distinct identity, characterized by its boundless capabilities. Yet one fundamental aspect remains constant. At their core, they are all undeniably exceptional aircraft. As the YA-7F prototype soared into the skies for the inaugural time in 1985, it wasn't a completely novel blueprint. This A-7F prototype symbolizes the most recent addition in a succession of models that have grown from one of aviation's most triumphant accomplishments, the Vought Corsair II. But the journey of the A-7F prototype wasn't a bed of roses. Confronting and overcoming a series of developmental obstacles and technical challenges, the creation of this flying machine truly encapsulates the relentless pursuit of aviation excellence. This remarkable plane first entered combat on December 2, 1967 during the Vietnam War. These aircraft have earned a lasting reputation for their precision in delivering strikes, even though they exhibit their own distinctive characteristics. In an age dominated by supersonic designs, these aircraft remain subsonic and notably unstreamlined. Pilots hold a deep affection for them, valuing their durability and unwavering reliability. During the Vietnam War, the initial A-7s significantly enhanced the striking capabilities of naval carriers and emerged as the preferred light attack weapon for larger vessels. The Corsair II's inaugural missions over Vietnam in 1967 marked the introduction of a new generation of navigation and attack avionics to the battlefield. Though the electronics were obsolete, the airframe endures and gets constantly refitted with new technology. Of 1,500 A-7s built, 854 serve in Vietnam. They fly with 27 squadrons and execute more than 97,000 sorties in the Southeast Asian theater. A B-52 pulverizes broad acreage. The A-7s come in low to attack a specific target. Enemy fire downs 54 A-7s, with earlier models suffering higher losses. As weapons accuracy increases, so do the single-pass attacks. Still, these slow, low-level attacks on well-defended targets invite retaliation. Amidst these perilous conditions, the A-7 aircraft demonstrated their effectiveness and managed to keep casualties to a minimum. The story of the Corsair II begins in the 1940s and 1950s, a time marked by rapid advancements in aviation design. The combination of increasingly powerful engines with sophisticated airframes and the introduction of a new concept in aviation performance known as avionics set new standards in the industry. Combat aircraft had shorter service lives during this period because by the time they were deployed, newer and superior fighter or attack aircraft were already on the horizon. As hostilities erupted in Vietnam, the Navy's attack planes were going through a transition, with the Douglas A-4 Skyhawk serving as one of the primary aircraft. The A-4, a single-seat attack plane, was introduced into Navy service in 1952 and became operational 4 years later. It was known for its relative cost-effectiveness in both construction and maintenance, along with its precision performance. However, its service life was limited due to payload and range constraints. The Skyhawk fulfilled a specific role that emerged as the Navy introduced heavier attack aircraft to handle nuclear weapons. Fighter bombers were brought in to supplement earlier attack aircraft, but as jet technology's limitations led to more specialized fighter designs, it resulted in reduced payload capacity and created a need for a dedicated light attack aircraft. During the Korean War, the Vought Corsair I assumed this role. The distinctive bent-wing design of the F-4U Corsair marked it as one of the world's exceptional fighter aircraft. However, it lacked the low-speed capabilities of other aircraft and was no longer competitive as a fighter. Consequently, it was retired as one of the finest planes of its era. The Corsair's iconic inverted gull-wing design symbolized Vaught's willingness to embrace unconventional designs when they served a valuable purpose. But their first jet, the Pirate, is fairly conventional. First flown in 1946, the Pirate proves mediocre and few are built. Vaught's subsequent naval design, the daring and highly successful F-7U Cutlass, marked a significant resurgence of the company's standing with the Navy. During an era characterized by innovation and experimentation, the F-7U Cutlass stood out as one of the boldest designs to be put into production. With its twin-engine configuration, lack of a conventional tail and twin rudders positioned midway out on the wings, it represented a single-seat fighter that was unlike anything currently in service. The unique wing design gave the aircraft a resemblance to the F-14, but in the fiercely competitive realm of avionics, Vaught's pioneering advancements were only just beginning. Vaught's bold design of the F-7U Cutlass garnered the Navy's attention. But like many planes of its era, it was ordered in limited numbers and had a relatively short service life. One distinguishing feature of the Cutlass was its elongated nose gear, allowing for a higher angle of attack during landing. However, this design element also had the drawback of limiting pilot visibility. Despite its success, the Cutlass suffered from several disadvantages, including a high attrition rate due to accidents and engine failures. Vaught's next contribution to the Navy, the F-8U Crusader, achieved supersonic speeds on its maiden flight. This aircraft, which became the Navy's first to reach speeds of 1,000 miles per hour in active service, stemmed from a request for supersonic day fighters in 1952. Vought secured the contract in 1953, and the experimental plane took flight for the first time in 1955. The F-8 Crusader represented a more straightforward design compared to the Cutlass, but was highly innovative. It was the first aircraft built from the ground up to incorporate the area rule concept, which minimized drag at and above the speed of sound. Its wing design introduced numerous features that have since become standard in today's fighter aircraft. Even to this day, the Crusader maintains a stellar reputation for its exceptional maneuverability, high-performance capabilities, and potent attack capabilities. In 1955, two prototypes embark on a test series so successful that only 9 months after the first flight, even before the testing is completed, the Navy orders them in quantity. The F-8 Crusader features a distinctive design where approximately half of the fuselage is dedicated to accommodating a large engine. It draws air through a chin inlet and an enlarged duct that runs down the center of the aircraft. The cockpit is situated right at the nose of the plane, and despite having a low-drag canopy, the pilot enjoys an unobstructed view. One of the aircraft's most innovative features is its pivoting wing. A hinge at the rear of the wing allows for a variable angle of incidence, facilitating slower landing and takeoff speeds, which are crucial for carrier-based operations. The unique positioning of the variable wing on top of the fuselage is unusual for a fighter, but it allows for shorter landing gear that retracts into the fuselage. Over time, a range of variants emerged, including the 2N Night Fighter and the 2ME multi-role fighter bomber. The basic airframe underwent multiple modifications, resulting in 18 different production versions. In 1958, the F-8U-2 was introduced as an upgraded and refined version of the Crusader. This led to the creation of the 2N, a night fighter variant, in 1960. While the Crusader already featured unguided rockets with rails for the Sidewinder missile, the 2N added a powerful new radar system to provide target illumination for its unique version of the Sidewinder missile. The F-8, designed for weapon versatility, served as a launching platform for a majority of the United States airborne weapons. Its high-wing configuration simplified the mounting of external stores, among other factors that contributed to the Crusader's successful performance. The Crusader's production spanned from 1956 to 1965, reflecting its enduring legacy and significance in the world of aviation. From 1960 to the late 1970s, the plane undergoes major updating, and almost all of the surviving F-8s are rebuilt. At the heart of the Crusader's success lies its wing, a masterpiece of aerodynamic and structural design. In the year 1952, when supersonic flight remained a tantalizing mystery, Vaught's team of engineers embarked on an ambitious and forward-thinking design project. The original Crusaders were expected to have a short service life. But in 1955, the Navy issued new specifications for a fighter, and Vought created a transformed version known as the Crusader III. It was designed to serve as an all-weather interceptor. The Crusader III featured a powerful J-75 engine, increasing its top speed by over 500 miles per hour, reaching Mach 2.3. It also had a larger radar system and provisions for carrying 3 Sparrow missiles. The addition of hinged ventral fins enhanced its maneuverability. Despite retaining guns, the Crusader III lost in the 1958 fly-off competition against McDonnell's F-4 Phantom, which relied on advanced missiles. The Crusader III seemed outdated compared to the Phantom. Only 5 Crusader III aircraft were built, and only 3 flew before the order was cancelled, putting Vaught's future at risk. The Navy needed to replace the aging Skyhawk, which was considered obsolete by 1960. The nimble and lightweight Douglas Skyhawk had performed well in Vietnam, leading the Marines to order updated versions. However, the Navy had different requirements for carrier-based aircraft. In 1963, they outlined clear requirements for a new aircraft with double the range and payload of the Skyhawk. They set production targets and established reliability and maintenance schedules. To save time and money, the Navy wanted proposals based on existing aircraft. They wanted an inexpensive, reliable and subsonic aircraft to replace the Seahawk. The Navy's primary focus was on acquiring a new plane that exceeded their expectations. The A-7 Corsair was the sole single-seat jet fighter bomber in the United States, specifically designed, constructed, and rapidly deployed directly into the Vietnam War. In response to the Navy's call for light attack aircraft proposals in 1963, Vaught's engineers, led by Russell Clark, began developing their submission. Russell Clark was one of the few distinguished American designers who had a profound influence on the development of U.S. combat aircraft, having previously designed the Crusader. The new Vought proposal, based on the Crusader but significantly modified, won the Navy contract on February 11, 1964. Vaught's approach diverged from the Navy's initial criteria, resulting in a new aircraft that bore some resemblance to the F-8, but shared very few parts or equipment. The A-7 retained a few of the F-8's design features, such as the low turbulence chin intake. However, it was fundamentally a new aircraft. The hinged variable-incidence wing of the F-8 was replaced with a steeper deck attitude and larger flaps. Clark positioned the wing high on the fuselage to allow ample clearance for heavy stores, which contributed to reduced drag and improved speed thanks to the moderately swept and tapered wing design. The original A-7 models were equipped with a multi-mode radar system and a comprehensive navigation and attack package. The 6 pylons under the wings were carefully aligned with the center of gravity for efficient payload distribution. The aircraft featured a substantial speed brake to enhance maneuverability during low-level attack missions. Its power plant was manufactured by Pratt & Whitney, housing an 11,000-pound thrust turbofan engine that allowed the A-7 to reach a top speed of 578 miles per hour at sea level. Company studies confirm that strike aircraft gain little benefit from supersonic speed except outrun fighters. It takes only 42 steps to install the engine, and a four-man team of mechanics can remove one in about 15 minutes. In the subsequent years, the A-7 aircraft received progressively more powerful engines, resulting in unprecedented weapons carrying capability. Alongside retaining two of the Crusader's four cannons, the A-7 could accommodate up to 20,000 pounds of assorted stores, marking a significant leap in its payload capacity. Various modifications were made to the A-7, differentiating it from the F-8. These included a widened fuselage to carry internal fuel, an uplifted F-section to provide more deck clearance, and the incorporation of sophisticated navigation and aiming computers. The aircraft completed its inaugural flight ahead of schedule on September 27, 1965, flying 35 times in the next 33 days. Its first public demonstration on November 2, 1965, marked the beginning of its legendary reputation. Two A-7A aircraft participated in the display, one showcasing a relatively modest yet impressive bomb load and the other with slick wings, treating the appreciative crowd to high-speed simulated attack passes and dive-bombing runs. With the United States deeply engaged in the Vietnam conflict, the A-7 proved to be well-suited for service in the region. However, the Navy's strict contract stipulated a range of penalty clauses for missing deadlines and specifications. The Vought team met all but one of the requirements, as the strengthened carrier-operable wings pushed the plane 600 pounds over the weight limit. Despite this, the A-7's exceptional performance justified the deviation, and the Navy placed an order for 140 production aircraft. As testing continued, naval personnel began their training, with senior mechanics collaborating with company staff to refine servicing and maintenance techniques. Experienced Navy test pilots commenced their own test series as production ramped up, and the Navy announced its total satisfaction with the plane's development. Although several aircraft were lost during testing, there were no fatalities or evidence of design flaws. The A-7 entered service, but initial carrier trials revealed a significant issue with the design. During launch, the intake would draw in steam from the Catapult, which reduced the already low power and could potentially lead to a compressor stall. As a temporary solution was sought, the Navy limited the takeoff weight to 3,000 pounds. This steam ingestion problem initially tarnished the A-7's reputation until the introduction of the more powerful B model. Despite the engine problem, the Corsair became essential for Vietnam, and it was deployed through 1967. Squadrons underwent training with the aircraft, and on December 4, 1967, pilots flying from the USS Ranger executed the Corsair's first combat strikes. The Corsairs from the Ranger not only conducted interdiction missions against Vietnamese bridges and roads, but also targeted missile sites in support of the conflict. On armed reconnaissance patrols, small numbers of aircraft take advantage of the A-7's range to seek out Vietnamese roads as targets of opportunity. But the raids have a cost. The A-7 Corsairs faced their first loss in one of the original Ranger squadrons when an aircraft was hit by ground fire on December 22, 1967, only 18 days after the Corsair's first combat mission in Vietnam. The Ranger Squadron, designated VA-147, continued to operate the Corsairs for almost 2 decades, until the planes were eventually replaced by FA-18 Hornets in 1985. From the outset of their deployment, the Corsairs were put to the test. During their initial Vietnam deployment under the leadership of Commander James Hill, the Ranger Squadron thoroughly assessed the Corsairs' warfighting potential. The results of their evaluation confirmed the Navy's assertion that the A-7 Corsair was the world's finest light attack aircraft. The men of VA-147 on the Ranger had a long and eventful cruise, which included a notable side trip to the waters off North Korea during a critical incident. In May 1968, the USS America relieved the Ranger as the aircraft carrier on station. For most of its tour, the Ranger operated off the North Vietnamese coast, with its pilots flying dangerous missions from the Gulf of Tonkin against an increasingly well-organized air defense. A variety of weaponry and tactics came into play as the Corsairs carried out their vital missions in the theatre of conflict. Strike missiles against surface-to-air missile sites, 500-pound bombs to attack bridges, sidewinders to fend off MiG attacks. The A-7 Corsair's versatility in using a wide variety of ordnance, coupled with their precision in delivering it, solidified the Vought team's success. The reputation of the A-7 as the foremost attack aircraft was now firmly established. The aircraft carrier's impressive mix of aircraft included the Grumman Intruders, all-weather medium attack planes set to replace the venerable A-1 Sky Raiders. Alongside the A-7, the carrier's flight deck also hosted the F-4 Phantom, a plane that had a significant role in phasing out the Crusader. The Phantom had reconnaissance variants, but its primary role was to engage in combat alongside the Marines, the Air Force, and the Navy. Another notable presence on the carrier deck was the North American RA-5C Vigilante, a two-seater reconnaissance aircraft. Vigilantes provided tactical intelligence through their infrared line scans, side-looking radar, and an array of cameras. Capable of reaching Mach 2 speeds, they served throughout the Vietnam conflict. The Crusaders continued in service, particularly due to their effective operation from smaller carriers. Their value on the smaller ships was so significant that even the land-based Crusaders used by the Marines were adapted and refitted for shipboard deployment. The mix of aircraft on the carriers asserted local air superiority over any target in North Vietnam and delivered devastating strikes. Their presence, especially when operating close to the shoreline, could significantly restrict Vietnamese aircraft activities over their own territory. The carriers functioned as a complete air fighting force. They were able to locate targets and assess damage with reconnaissance flights, and then strike with overwhelming power, effectively clearing defenses at will. While pilots faced the constant challenge of dodging anti-aircraft artillery and surface-to-air missiles, much of North Vietnamese firepower was either electronically suppressed or countered with anti-radiation strikes. Targets identified through surveillance were swiftly and heavily punished. Life on a busy and noisy carrier deck never ceased, particularly during the Vietnam War. The attacks during operations like Rolling Thunder continued without pause, continually testing the large carriers as comprehensive weapon systems. They pass with flying colors. In all the chaos, the A-7 Corsairs proved themselves completely winning over their pilots. The growing reputation for accurate bombing means the Corsairs multiply rapidly, and by 1972 they replaced most of the A-4s as the Navy's light attack weapon. The Air Force scrutinizes the design for use as a tactical fighter and orders test planes only 3 months after the first flight. Designated the A-7D, the Air Force variant goes into service evaluation in April of 1968. The A-7D is the first Air Force subsonic fighter in 15 years. The A-7 Corsair II played a pivotal role in naval carrier-based operations, particularly during the Vietnam War. It was designed to replace supersonic aircraft types that had inadequate load carrying and loiter capability for the demands of the conflict. The US Air Force deployed 72 of these variants during the war, and they performed admirably not only in their attack roles but also in search and rescue missions. In one notable mission, an A-7 remained airborne for nearly 9 hours thanks to aerial refueling and the remarkable resilience of its pilot. The Air Force's use of the A-7 Corsair added an important chapter to the aircraft's story. The Air Force stipulated several upgrades and changes to the Navy version, making an already excellent aircraft even better. The unit cost for a single A-7 was $2.89 million. The Navy's appreciation for the Corsair led to modifications aimed at enhancing its versatility. They ordered 462 A-7s in 3 variants: the A-7A, A-7B, and A-7C. Additionally, the Air Force placed an order for 459 A-7D units, leading to a significant production run for Vought. The Navy ordered 535 A-7Es, with many of the modifications involving new engines and more sophisticated equipment. The new nav attack system increased accuracy and reduced losses. Notably, a single Gatling gun, firing 20mm ammunition, replaced the previous dual cannons, and the pilot could select a rate of fire ranging from 4,000 to 6,000 rounds per minute. The A-7E models flew nearly as many Vietnam missions as all other models combined, with an average mission length of 2 hours and 15 minutes. They carried out approximately 90,000 sorties, accumulating more than 8,400 days aloft in the combat zone, all while maintaining a remarkably low loss ratio. The Navy Corsairs conducted their final combat operations during the linebacker raids from May 1972 to January 1973, which sought to suppress North Vietnamese tactical exploitation of the Paris peace talks. These raids included some of the most intense and challenging missions of the entire conflict, involving heavily defended bridges and missile launch and storage sites. The A-7s continued their service, with E models flying some of their last missions in the spring of 1975, during operations related to the Mayaguez rescue, Eagle Pull, and frequent evacuations from Phnom Penh and Saigon. Notably, on August 15, 1973, an A-7D aircraft dropped the last American-delivered ordnance of the conflict while flying 40 miles north of Phnom Penh. The Corsairs saw action in various conflicts after Vietnam, including over Libya, Lebanon, Grenada, and the Persian Gulf. On a few occasions, they underwent upgrades to improve their capabilities. The A-7 Corsair II served through 3 decades, even making an appearance in the first Persian Gulf conflict in 1991. Full operational usage by the US Air Force and US Navy officially ended in 1993, capping a distinguished career for this versatile aircraft. The A-7 Corsair II proved to be an essential asset for naval carrier-based operations, capable of delivering a wide range of air-to-surface munitions while retaining enough performance and firepower for air-to-air combat when needed.
Now you've completed your field carrier landing practice, and you're ready to apply what you've learned ashore to landing on the deck of a carrier. In transposing your skills from the field to the ship, you'll find there are certain differences to take into consideration. You'll have more wind in the groove, but virtually no crosswind. You'll be adjusting to new signals and to conditions where your landing area may pitch and roll. Tire pressures are higher in order to absorb the greater impact of arrested landings. Taxiing requires more power and more braking. Many of these variations will be presented in this film. As you approach the carrier to enter the brake, parallel the base recovery course, or Fox Korpen, close aboard the starboard side at 800 feet. Your hook should be up for touch and goes, down for an arrested landing. If your interval is past the 90-degree position, brake just forward of the bow. When taking interval on other aircraft already established in the pattern, brake when the A-7 or A-4 ahead of you is at your 7:30 position. For any other aircraft, including props, your 7 o'clock position. When braking out of formation, take a 17-second interval on the aircraft ahead. Entering the brake, 250 knots indicated airspeed is optimum if single, 300 knots for a section or more. After braking, slow to 220 knots, dirty up and descend to the pattern altitude of 500 feet when wings level downwind. On the downwind leg, complete the landing checklist. Cross-check angle of attack at 17.5 units for proper airspeed. Once you have determined your angle of attack is correct, engage and check your APC if you're using it in your approach. Look for the proper abeam position, 1¼ miles. Don't rely on the aircraft ahead of you. He could possibly be out of position. The best guide is to use TACAN DME until you have calibrated your eye as to the relative size of the ship at the proper distance abeam. Under optimum wind conditions of 30 knots, you will start your turn off the 180, abeam the LSO platform. For winds in excess of 35 knots, start the turn abeam the island. For lighter wind conditions or APC approaches, turn later on an extension of the ramp position. Make a level instrument turn off the 180 through the 90-degree position using 25 to 27 degrees of bank. Start looking for the meatball between the 90 and the 45. Do not start your descent without a ball. Wings level in the groove with proper lineup will put you slightly starboard of the wake. Call the ball when you see it, or Clara if you don't have it by the time you level your wings at the start.
Pack saddle 524, Corsair, manual ball, state 42, Davis.
If you're using APC, report auto ball. Once you've acquired the meatball, you're somewhere within 3/4 of a degree of optimum glide slope. From that point on, keep your eye on the ball all the way. Keep it in the center and make any necessary corrections as far out as possible. Maintain optimum angle of attack all the way to touchdown. Keep lined up with the angled deck. Crab slightly starboard to compensate for the movement of the ship, which is on a course 10 degrees right of your track in the groove. On an airfield, the angle of the glide slope is approximately 3 degrees. But this, in conjunction with the increased wind at the ship, is not enough slope for hook-to-ramp clearance in carrier landings. So the angle is increased to 3.5 degrees, or 4 degrees for ships of lesser ramp-to-wire distances, or when unusually high wind conditions occur. The resultant effect of natural and ship-made wind is a 30-knot headwind in the groove. Your aircraft is actually closing the ship at approximately 100 knots. Therefore, your rate of descent is less. This essentially shallows your glide slope, and you'll find you're using more power at the ship. So keep your eye on the ball all the way to touchdown. Don't spot the deck, or you're asking for trouble. Now let's get out of animation and back to the real world. Arriving at the carrier, you follow the pattern we've just discussed. Make a level break just forward of the bow. Dirty the plane at 220 knots and descend to pattern altitude of 500 feet when wings level downwind. Start your final turn 1.25 miles abeam the LSO platform. Pick up the ball and keep it centered as you follow the glide slope all the way to the deck. On touchdown, advance the throttle to full power. As forward motion ceases, reduce power to idle and allow the aircraft to roll back. Raise the hook at the completion of the rollback. Add power in anticipation of taxiing clear of the landing area, holding your brakes until given the come ahead. Pull the wings on the director's signal. When the come ahead signal is received, release brakes and taxi clear of the landing area. Use brakes for directional control until nose wheel steering is available. Taxi the aircraft as directed, but do not use excessive power. Usually, a maximum of 70% will be enough to counteract the effects of jet blast or high wind as you taxi to the catapult. Follow the director's signals at all times. If you're waiting behind the blast deflector for launch, hold the nose steering button engaged. Brakes on. This will prevent the aircraft from swinging around or sliding due to wind or jet blast. Check the weight board to verify the gross weight. Your takeoff checklist should be complete before taxiing on to the catapult. UHT is trimmed 4 degrees nose up. Approach the cat track slowly. Ride the brakes lightly and evenly. Nose gear steering should be engaged. Follow the plane director's signals closely to align the aircraft with the cat. As the aircraft moves forward, the holdback assembly is installed. When the plane is properly aligned, the director will signal the pilot to drop the launch bar. Then, as the holdback assembly stops the aircraft, the launch bar drops into the shuttle. Disengage the nose steering on the director's signal. Do not use it after the launch bar is positioned in the track. When you're lined up with the cat, align the compass with the base recovery course. At light fuel weights, a one-finger turn-up may be required to depress the nose strut and allow the launch bar to drop into the shuttle. When you receive the signal to take tension, go to full power. Release the brakes. The launch bar switch should be off. Check EPR and other engine instruments. On the A-7A, engage the bleed switch. The EPR drop should be about 0.17. Make sure the launch bar light is out. Then make final visual checks: cat grip and friction lock, yaw stab on, control AUG off. When you're ready to launch, position your head against the headrest and salute. No rotation is necessary at the end of the cat stroke, but ensure that you have the proper attitude of 10 degrees nose up, at least the minimum end speed for your gross weight, and not more than 18 units of angle of attack. When you're comfortably airborne, drop your hook. While climbing to pattern altitude of 500 feet, check for interval. 8 o'clock on another A7 or A4, 7 o'clock on all other aircraft. Again, if your interval is past the 90, a turn crosswind is permissible once you're airborne, but keep climbing to 500 feet. Naturally, an unsatisfactory approach rates a wave-off. If the wave-off lights flash, or paddles tells you to wave off, it is mandatory that you take the wave-off. Remember that the ship has arresting gear, so it's important that you level your wings and maintain your lineup as you advance power. It's also imperative that you do not over-rotate the aircraft, as this could result in an in-flight engagement. Maintain the optimum angle of attack. If you bolter, full power on touchdown gives you the necessary thrust to rotate to optimum angle of attack at the end of the deck. On both wave-off and bolter, once you're past the bow of the ship, turn right to parallel the Fox-Korpen. But be careful not to cross the bow. At other times, you'll be involved in hot switching. Always wear your hard hat. Use tinted or clear visor as appropriate. Wear gloves on the flight deck during operations. The switch pilot should always check tires, brake pins, and the aircraft for any obvious leaks. While doing this, avoid the intake and tailpipe areas. If you're the pilot being relieved, do not unstrap until the aircraft is chocked and tied down with 3 chains. When the aircraft is tied down and the switch pilot is at the aircraft, pull down the head knocker, install the canopy strap, unplug the oxygen mask hose, hand the knee board to the plane captain, unstrap, and dismount. On the way out, make sure you don't hit the throttle or pop the bailout bottle with your feet or flight gear. The same caution applies to the switch pilot as he mounts and moves into the cockpit. Hold the brakes and strap in. No post-start checks are required, but the takeoff checklist should be completed, except for wings and compass alignment. After returning from a mission, keep the engine running until chocks, downlocks, and at least 3 tie-downs are installed. Execute a normal shutdown when the cut signal is received. Control the canopy opening rate by holding rails with both hands, and install the canopy strap immediately. Always raise flaps prior to a shutdown, even underway on the hangar deck. When you're on the hangar deck, remove your hard hat immediately after shutdown in order to hear whistle signals from the director. Once you've stopped, hold the brakes until the plane is tied down. Remember, you have a maximum of 5 brake applications after shutdown, so keep your hand on the emergency brake handle. When preparing for launch aboard ship, there are certain procedures essential to your safety. You should know the bingo or divert field, ship's weather, ship's PIM, aircraft assignment, spot, and gross weight. On deck, conduct a normal pre-flight. Inspect tires for cuts and bruises, struts for proper inflation, hook point for grease, and look for possible cable damage to the underside of the aircraft. If the aircraft is spotted with the tail over the catwalk, it may not always be possible to make a complete inspection of the aft fuselage. Mark the gross weight of the aircraft on each nose gear door. Post-start checks are the same as on the beach, except the launch bar is checked, and you may not be able to drop the tail hook if the tail is over the catwalk. When the takeoff checklist is complete, report up with your gross weight to the tower.
Pack settle 524 up, gross weight 22.5.
524, roger.
When up transmission is acknowledged, give the yellow shirt a thumbs up, indicating you're ready to taxi. The head knocker should be up any time the aircraft is not tied down. Flaps should be down for nose wheel steering. Don't spread your wings until you get a signal from the director. The procedures for daytime operations also apply to night operations, but the pace is slightly reduced to compensate for reduced visibility. Instead of hand signals to the pilot, the deck crew uses lighted wands. On night operations, use a red flashlight to conduct exterior pre-flight. If more light is required, borrow a signal wand or a white-lensed flashlight. Make sure the exterior light switches are properly positioned for launch. Bright and steady, approach and carrier, collision light off. The master exterior light switch should be off, and the taxi light switch should be off prior to start. The instrument light rheostat should be out of the off position to reduce the brilliance of the warning and advisory lights when the generator comes on the line. For post-start, adjust the cockpit lights as desired and perform the system functional checks. At night, the aircraft should be handled slowly and carefully by both directors and pilots. If there's any doubt about the safety of the operation or the plane director's signal, stop the aircraft. At night, it is difficult to determine speed or motion over the deck, so always follow the director's signals closely. Directors should remain stationary so pilots can use them as guides for taxi speed. The plane director will position himself forward of the aircraft and remain stationary as you approach the catapult. Use him as a visual reference. As you approach the cat, check the weight board. A horizontal wave with a flashlight means lower the weight. If the weight figure should be increased, the signal would be up and down. When it's okay, the signal is a series of circles. Now you perform all cockpit checks prescribed for launch. When you're satisfied the aircraft is ready for launch, establish an instrument scan: gyro, airspeed, rate of climb, angle of attack. Then turn the master exterior light switch on. Be prepared to establish a wings level, climbing attitude on instruments. An initial 10 degrees nose-up attitude is recommended. Check for minimum end speed, proper angle of attack, a positive rate of climb, and the altimeter climbing. If a no-go situation arises, leave the exterior lights as they are and transmit to pry-fly.
Suspend Cat 2.
Always maintain full power and scan until the catapult officer walks in front of the wing and gives the signal to reduce power. Then turn off lights and reduce power for pushback. Night and instrument recoveries will normally be made utilizing TACAN and CCA procedures in accordance with the CVA-CVS NATOPS manual. Remember, there is more conversation on the recovery frequency at night, so keep your transmissions to a minimum. Acknowledge with side number only. After arrestment, immediately turn the master external light switch off. Taxi out of the landing area slowly. Do not stare at the plane director's wands, but keep them in sight at all times. Use him as a speed and direction reference. Occasionally, during carrier operations, certain difficulties may arise for which you should be prepared. If you get hung up in the gear, reduce power, drop the hook when directed, release brakes, and allow the aircraft to be pulled back. Raise the hook again on signal. Often on rollback after landing, the nose wheel may swivel 180 degrees. Use your brakes for initial directional control and engage nose wheel steering after forward motion is established. Some pilots like to prevent this situation by engaging nose wheel steering on rollout and holding it during rollback. If you lose your radio on an approach, make normal transmissions in the blind. To indicate radio failure at night, switch lights to bright and flash. The LSO will utilize the green cut lights, first as an acknowledgement to you that he has control, later as a call for power. If you should lose one or both brakes while taxiing, inform the tower and lower tail hook immediately to indicate brake loss to the plane director. Don't discount the use of nose wheel steering to deck loop. Attempt to stop the aircraft with the emergency brakes. At night, also turn the external master light switch back on. Anytime you're on the cat and conditions develop so that you do not want to go, shake your head from side to side and transmit suspend on UHF. Never raise your hand for any reason when you're on the cat, except to salute. But always be prepared to go until given the throttle back signal by the catapult officer in front of the wing. Making a successful landing on a carrier may seem to be more difficult than coming in to land on a runway ashore. The landing area is in motion and is subject to the effects of wind and sea. However, as you build experience around the ship, you will begin to realize that there are certain advantages to carrier operations. You have more time to make corrections. Your closing rate on the landing area is 30 knots slower. Your actual glide path is shallower. You're operating in a more responsive power range. The arresting gear stops you quickly and surely. A blown tire or loss of brakes is no problem. There is seldom a crosswind, and if you do have some kind of problem requiring crash crew assistance, the crew is just a few quick steps away. Concentration is required. A finer attention to all details is necessary. But landing aids have been proved and procedures have been developed to aid you. Be continually aware of the differences in shipboard operations and follow the prescribed procedures. Your safety and the safety of your shipmates depends on your knowing what to do and when to do it.
Crash crews on runway alert know that it's a good practice to watch for incidents that could lead to a crash, such as sparks or skidding, excessive braking, or erratic maneuvers. Since the crews are totally familiar with aircraft based at their station, these signs are easy to spot, and in the event of an incident, a rescue from the familiar aircraft would be fast and efficient. But what about an unfamiliar aircraft? Well, with the range and speed of today's aircraft, crash crews never know when they're going to get an unfamiliar airplane. I knew that this station rarely sees an A-7E, and you can get a lot out of the firefighting and rescue manual, but the best way is to take every opportunity to check out the visitor. So I wasn't too surprised when the crash crewman asked if I had a minute to show them around the A-7E airplane. Well, you never know when you or some other A-7 jockey's going to need his help. So, even though I was in kind of a hurry, like all smart aviators, I took the time. I mean, wouldn't everybody? Sure they would. As with all aircraft, the A-7E has certain danger areas that must be considered. Since fuel is normally the greatest fire hazard in an accident, the various fuel loading capabilities must be known. Internally, the A-7E contains wing tanks holding 379 gallons each. Fuselage tanks hold 738 gallons. The wing drop tanks hold 300 gallons each. As for hazard areas on the A-7E, the jet engine inlet suction danger area is directly in front of the nose and extends out about 15 feet with the engine at idle power. With full power, engine suction is dangerous to a man out to 30 feet. The engine exhaust can cause severe burns and blast damage at ranges from 60 to 150 feet, depending upon engine power. The turbine blade failure area is in the vicinity of the trailing edge of the wing. Although engine improvements have reduced blade failures, a foreign object sucked into the inlet could cause the blades to disintegrate. The canopy jettison danger area is aft of the cockpit and includes the entire fuselage area out to about 6 feet on either side. Naturally, with a falling canopy, wind conditions must be considered. If the airplane has made a maximum braking stop, there is a danger area near each wheel due to hot brakes. The A-7E does have anti-skid brakes and fusible blowout plugs in the wheels. This combination has reduced the number of wheel fires, hydraulic fluid lines ruptured by high-pressure tire explosion, and ignition by hot brakes. Even so, the safest area when working around an airplane with suspected hot brakes is directly in front or behind tire assemblies. The LOX tank on the A-7E is located on the port side just aft of the cockpit. Removal requires only the disconnecting of 2 wires, 2 couplings, and a wing nut. Liquid oxygen must be handled with extreme care. Spilling could induce a fire or cause a bad skin burn. Accidental retraction of the landing gear is also a danger. Safety downlock collars are stowed in the nose wheel well. The collars should be secured on both wheel struts. A safety pin for the nose wheel is stowed in the right-hand avionics bay. When the engine is running, there may be high-temperature air coming from the air conditioner outlet on the starboard side of the fuselage. The A-7E may carry a smoke abatement tank internally in this area. The chemical in the tank has an orangish color and is toxic. But as with other aircraft, smoke abatement chemicals are rarely carried today, even in combat areas. These tanks have been purged and as such are not toxic or dangerous. Weapons being carried are of course always an extreme hazard, and the A-7E can carry the usual wide variety of ordnance stores with which you are familiar. These are carried on pylons mounted under the wings. It must be remembered that a bomb rack contains an explosive separation device that could cook off in a fire, so that these areas should be avoided. With multiple bomb loads, there is an explosive separation device for each bomb. This is also true of drop tank pylons. The A-7E also carries a 20mm Gatling gun mounted on the port side below the cockpit. Other model A-7s carry a gun on each side in the same area. In any case, the forward firing zone on any high-performance jet should be avoided. The approach to an A-7E after a crash is like that for any other airplane, taking into consideration its special danger areas. If the engine is running, it's a good idea to give the pilot the cutoff sign. He might be dazed but not unconscious, and possibly could respond. If the airplane is surrounded by flames, you'll have to clear a way in using standard procedures. Now that will probably be the MB-5 using light water. The cockpit area, of course, should be kept cool, not only to protect the crewmen, but to prevent cook-off of the ejection rockets in the seat. All crash trucks carry a ladder designed to reach the cockpit. You can use this, or reach the cockpit by releasing the A-7E ladder. However, the A-7E ladder makes a difficult work platform, and instead, the correct portable ladder should be used. When the canopy is closed, one of the critical points of a rescue is entry to the cockpit. The fastest way, of course, is to jettison the canopy, but any jettison is a hazard, and the normal means for entry is simple and should be used if at all possible. On the A-7E, the exterior canopy release handle is located on the port side of the cockpit. Pushing the button on the handle in causes the handle to unlatch, and it will pop out. Rotating the handle counterclockwise 90 degrees unlocks the canopy. If the system is still operational, the canopy will slowly open by itself. But if there is no pneumatic and hydraulic pressure, turning the handle will only unlock the canopy. To open it, lift it by the canopy handle. The canopy may have to be propped open, or it can be easily sheared away to give better access to the cockpit. In the event forcible entry is required, the canopy should be chopped through, close to the metal frame. Chilling with CO2 is not required since the plexiglass on this airplane is relatively thin. In fact, it may shatter into small pieces. Using a power saw is sometimes quicker and does not leave jagged edges. When it's safe to do so, the fastest means of entry is to blow the canopy using one of the exterior canopy jettison initiators, which are located on each side of the fuselage. The handle is secured by thin copper wire, but a hard pull will easily break the wire. Pull the lanyard out all the way at about a 45-degree angle. In the A-7E, this is about 6 feet. Then pull hard and keep moving away, so you will be clear of the falling canopy. After cockpit entry, the first thing to do during any crash rescue is to secure the seat and canopy against accidental ejection. The A-7E has a head knocker safety for seat ejection. To pull it down, just pull until it clicks locked. Once locked, there's no danger of accidentally pushing it back up. Now the seat ejection system is secure. The safety pin can be inserted later. But remember, when reaching in the cockpit, there are 2 danger areas you should look out for. Do not pull the face curtain ejection control handle. And do not pull the alternate ejection control handle. If the pilot is unconscious, it is possible he may not be receiving oxygen, and you must quickly prevent suffocation by removing his oxygen mask. First, raise the sun visor on his helmet. Do not remove the helmet. Unfasten the pilot's oxygen mask. You should have memorized the 3 types of fasteners so that whichever type he is wearing will be totally familiar. Disconnecting the oxygen hose at the slip lock ring will automatically turn off the oxygen. Warning: do not disconnect or cut the oxygen line until after the oxygen mask is removed, since this would automatically cut off the pilot's only source of oxygen and air. The slip lock ring operates by sliding the ring up and pulling. If the airplane's engine is running, it should be shut down before beginning the next phase of the rescue. On the A-7E, the throttle is pulled aft to the idle detent, then outboard, past the detent, and all the way aft. The fuel master shutoff lever is located next to the throttle. Note that the throttle friction lock is also located here, and it is easy to confuse the 2 levers. The fuel master shutoff lever is safetied with a butterfly locking tab. This locking tab must be pushed outboard in order to pull the lever to the closed position, which shuts off the engine. If the cockpit is inaccessible or the engine controls malfunction, an emergency or remote means of shutting down the engine may be accomplished by injecting water or foam into the intake. Do not use a direct stream into the intake. Either use a spray or bounce the stream off the sides of the intake. Before the pilot is rescued from the airplane, his parachute must be unbuckled from his harness assembly. The 2 coke hip fittings are first disconnected. They may be difficult to see because of the pilot's survival gear. Coke fittings on Navy parachutes operate by lifting the locking latch upward, and with the same motion, rotating the knurled locking bar downward. Normally, the fittings will now separate. If they don't, then separate them manually. When disconnecting the 2 shoulder fittings, be careful not to pull the parachute D-ring. Coke fittings used by the Air Force are slightly different, but they operate in much the same manner by lifting the locking latch upward and with the same motion, rotating the knurled locking bar downward. This downward motion separates the fittings. If necessary, the parachute straps can be cut with a rescue knife, but this is difficult and time-consuming. As a last resort, the pilot can be released from the seat by pulling the emergency harness release handle, but this leaves 60 pounds of parachute and survival gear attached to the pilot and makes it extremely difficult to lift him from the cockpit. Finally, disconnect the pilot's NIG hose by a straight hard pull. With everything disconnected, we're now ready to lift the pilot out. This operation on the A-7E is much the same as for all high-performance jets. It should be practiced from time to time by all crash crewmen using any available airplane. It's a 2-man job. The best procedure is for 1 man to straddle the nose or to stand on the edges of the cockpit, while the 2nd man remains on the ladder. On modern jets, the cockpit is several feet above ground, and pilots as well as crash crewmen have been seriously injured when they fell, so caution must be used. In case the pilot is trapped in an inverted airplane, the nose must be lifted before the canopy can be opened. The fastest way is to use a crane attached to the nose gear trunnion or to any strong structural member. If a crane is not quickly available, it may be possible to partially raise the airplane by using heavy-duty jacks. As a last resort, dig under the canopy. Chopping through the canopy may also help. Chopping through the fuselage is almost impossible due to the many stringers, consoles, and equipment. If time is available, after the pilot is rescued, safety pins can be inserted in the ejector seat and the canopy ejector. The pins are generally carried in the airplane's map case. The seat ejection system is safetied by placing the pin in the seat initiator. On the A-7E, the canopy jettison initiator is located on the port forward section of the cockpit. It is safetied by placing a pin in the initiator. Oxygen should be shut off by means of the selector valve located on the aft section of the port panel. If not already done, the safety downlock collars are placed on the landing gear. The tail hook should be lifted and secured before the airplane is moved. When it comes to the actual fighting of fires on the A-7E, a couple of points should be remembered. At my own station, crews run through procedures on an available airplane. In general, firefighting procedures are the same as for other high-performance jet aircraft listed in the NAVAIR Firefighting and Rescue Manual. The major differences are in the fuel storage areas. For this reason, fuel storage areas must be memorized for each airplane to prevent puncturing a tank. On the A-7E, all fuel is contained forward of the engine, so a bayonet nozzle can be used anywhere aft of the wing. Although wheel fires are rare on the A-7E, if they should occur, purple K powder is an effective agent. Remember, when working on an A-7E fire, that the airplane is worth 2.5 times the cost of a hangar for housing an entire attack squadron. I guess to sum the whole thing up, it does take a certain amount of time and trouble to check out an unfamiliar airplane, both for the pilot and the crash crewman. I know why the pilot doesn't mind taking the time, but about the only motive the crash crewman has is his own sense of responsibility and pride in his crew and in himself. When the time comes, he wants to do everything he can to get the man out of that airplane fast, with a minimum danger to himself. And the only way to do that is by knowing in advance exactly what you're going to do. Obviously, that fella does.
Aviation, the art of aeronautics, began with the dreamers, inventors, and daredevils who dared to defy gravity. The journey of aviation was nurtured by pioneers like the Wright brothers, whose first flight marked a historic milestone. The role of aircrafts in world wars was groundbreaking, dramatically changing warfare strategies. This initiated a technological evolution in aviation, transforming the simplistic wings of a biplane into the thunderous roar of jet engines. Let's journey through the ages of aviation. Behind every great aircraft, there were great minds. These visionaries, like Sir Frank Whittle, the innovator of the turbojet engine, redefined air travel. Then there's Skunkworks Kelly Johnson, the genius behind the SR-71 Blackbird. His designs combined speed, stealth and power, crafting machines that dominated the heavens. The contributions of these pioneers have left an indelible mark on the canvas of aviation, shaping the course of history and inspiring generations of engineers and aviators. Each epoch in aviation history gave birth to extraordinary aircrafts, each with their own unique features and roles. The Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird was a marvel of speed and stealth. The F-105 Thunderchief, a supersonic fighter bomber, was vital in the Vietnam War. The P-51 Mustang, a long-range fighter, was critical in World War II. The P-47 Thunderbolt, a heavyweight fighter, was used extensively in the same war. The A-10 Thunderbolt II, the Warthog, is a close air support icon. The Messerschmitt Me-262 marked a leap forward in aviation technology. Each of these game changers were instrumental in their eras, and their legacies still resonate today. Beyond the game changers, there are those that have transcended their practical roles to become icons, The Concorde was not just an aircraft, it was a supersonic symbol of luxury and speed. The B-52 Stratofortress, a strategic bomber, is an icon of power and resilience. These magnificent machines and others like them have become much more than just aircrafts. They are enduring icons that encapsulate the audacious spirit, the relentless innovation, and the boundless ambition that define the world of aviation. For more amazing aerial footage, and to join us in this incredible journey, check out the DroneScapes YouTube channel.
If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.